Palmer Tom's on the line, joins us on a regular basis to talk Georgia football. NFL draft is just days away, so we're breaking down the dogs, and there is much to break down, and especially along the offensive line. So this has been one of the better groups in college football for the past several years, and obviously that's going to show up a few years later at the NFL draft, and you're going to have players coming off the board for 2 or 3 days all over the place off this stellar offensive line. Would Andrew Thomas be the number one guy?
Absolutely. Andrew Thomas. And then, followed up by Isaiah Wilson and Solomon Kindley. Thomas is a guy that coming into the season, you saw his name, pop up in that top 5 range throughout the season. You saw him pop up in that top 5 range. Was a semifinalist for the Outland Trophy as, one of the best interior offensive linemen in college football. He didn't do anything in his college career to prove people wrong. Talking with Todd McShay and Mel Kiper, you hear that teams, like I said, teams are going to go back to the film. Thomas wasn't a guy that, put up huge numbers at the combine on the bench press or whatever. But he is a guy that really showed up on tape. And so with teams going back to look at tape, I think teams are going to fall more and more in love with him. I would say he probably goes around the 10 to 15 range. Tampa Bay at 14, I mentioned that with Swift earlier. That's another spot that you could see a Georgia Bulldog go off the board, and Thomas, as a potential blindside protector for Tom Brady. And then, Wilson, you've seen his name. He's probably a second-round pick, but there has been some recent hype that he may be a first-round pick late in that first round, that some teams have him that high. Like I said, I expect him to come off the board in the second round. I would be really surprised if he did come off in the first, but he's got that upside that, you can get a guy like that in the second round, but he's, very much a first-round type guy. And, coming out after his third season, he redshirted his first season at Georgia, and so really only played 2 years under Kirby Smart and offensive lineman coach Sam Pittman. Started both those 2 seasons at right tackle opposite of Andrew Thomas. I think, some teams wanted to see him come back. I know Georgia fans wanted to see him come back and, maybe play left tackle this next season. He decides to go to the NFL draft. It's something that he's, dreamt of for a long time. And, I think he's got a great chance to make a, good living in the NFL, playing offensive line. And then Solomon Kindley, he's another guy that you saw his name pop up throughout the season. He had his struggles at left guard, but, also, dealt with some injuries, early in the season, suffered an injury against Notre Dame, and missed the South Carolina game. After that. And so, I think he's a guy that probably going to hear his name third day, but he could end up going third round. He's a guy that has a lot of upside in the NFL. He's a big, strong guy, and, playing under a great offensive line, he kind of got, looked over a little bit by, the 2 big tackles. I think Georgia's got another great guy coming into the NFL in Solomon Kindley.